what does success look like to you now?
I said, no, I don't know where this thing goes. It could fizzle and burn. We could become a massive success that hits newspapers one day, right? But like that feeling I had in that room of the journey that I'm on, just living to my fullest capability, finally challenged to the highest level I can ever feel like I've been challenged. This is success. It's an inside game. It's a journey. It's about relationships. It's about finding joy and meaning in whatever your grind ends up becoming. And I said, that's the message I want to get out to people, because I know how many people are struggling with that. Whether they're a famous celebrity or they're trying to break a generational curse, people are struggling with where they draw the line on success and what should that mean to them when.
It still hits, I don't miss it. It's go, 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 like a go, go flow. And I'm almost done, and I told you so. When I throw these flows, like it's Rochambeau, and I ain't too close to the Joe Smoke goes. And I'm on my grind, that is all the time. I do not do breaks, that's right, I stay in dry. And look, I'm back with a little bit of that, and a little more cash than it came in with. Ready, that cat is out that bag, but I still ask you, the boy got skills. I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me, I got this. I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both, even do this, word.
Adam McGraw, welcome to the On the Stacks podcast.
Thanks, Bill. Great to be here, man.
Yeah, thanks for joining. I appreciate you taking the time here today. First of all, I gotta compliment you on your setup here. You have for I don't do my virtual episodes every once in a while, but I have this studio here, and I have a lot of people that I usually have in person. But you're halfway across the country from me out in Austin, Texas. So of course we're doing the virtual one. But I just have to say, man, I'm impressed with your setup and the look. A lot of times, I'm telling you, there's been times where I came on here, sometimes not knowing what to expect, right? Because this is like our first real conversation, by the way.
Sure.
I hop on here sometimes, and dude, I'm not kidding. I'm telling you, I've had, from the when people show up as a guest, I've seen it all, man. And like I've gotten some crazy people with crazy backgrounds and things. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, come on, you got to go somewhere else in the house. Like you can't have, right? So thanks for showing up. Thanks for showing up prepared today.
Well, it's funny because this is actually the stepchild room of my house, because my wife, we moved into this house a couple years ago, and everything else is just decked out into the nines. And yes, I think it passes like the typical Zoom test, but it's like what we said we were going to do has not happened since we moved in. So eventually this thing's going to look unbelievable because my wife's super talented at that. But I'm not on the priority list yet. So.
Well, hey, listen, I gotta say, I mean, for if what you're saying right now, if this to you, if you guys think that isn't up to par, I'm telling you right now, it's great. And by the way, I also have to say it looks like it would be a killer podcast studio, so just throw.
I should
just throwing that out there.
I wanted to do it.
Yeah. Just throwing that out there. So yeah, I mean it is. I mean I love the black. You got that black wall back there. I mean it's. I mean I'm telling you, you already have the perfect setup. Most people don't. Most people are like, oh, I don't know where I would do it or how. And it's like, man, you've already got it. All you got to do is just hop back on here in front of the camera.
I love it. I actually love having these chats. So it's something I want to do if I get a little bit of spare time. So we'll see. Yeah.
And also too, and before we really get into it, I also want to give Shelby Janner, I hope I'm saying her last name correctly, a shout out for introducing us and getting this set up for us. Sometimes I get 5 to 10 pitches a day for guests, which I know it sounds almost not even true. It almost sounds like I'm making this up now, but I really get a lot. And a lot of times they're just bullshit. A lot of times I could tell people don't put the effort in. And one of the reasons that I said yes to having you on is because her email, it was personalized. I could tell. It was actually personalized, and I know you're big on authenticity and all that. Obviously I read some your bio and things that she had sent me, before us coming on here, and like I said, I was really impressed because I like I said, sometimes I get upwards of 10 a day, and they're automated, and they sound so fake. You could tell they're either written by AI or whatever it is, and it's just. Or there's it seems like the person sending me the email isn't even a real person. They don't even exist. And when I saw Shelby's come through, I'm like, oh, she looks like a real person. I'm like, this looks like a real email. I'm like, who's this guy? I'm gonna check this guy out. So I clicked on it, and I was like, you know what? This guy seems interesting. I'll have him on.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably pushing them harder than some of their other clients on setting up really good conversations. So it's nice to hear that it's kind of working on your end.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool too. Like I said, it seems like they really they're really putting forth the effort and they really know what they're doing. Because like I said, that's to me, that's what made the difference. Like I said, like I the virtual ones, I maybe only ever do ones like this, like every few weeks, sometimes every couple months. I just it just gets out of sight, out of mind, because a lot of times I just have like, we were talking before we came on how you have a connection here in the Scranton area, but I have like so many local connections that like, it's like everybody's right here in the backyard, as I'm sure the same would go for you. Like if you had a show, like you have so many people right there in Austin that you would just have on your show immediately in your future studio that we're both looking at. Right. But yeah, so like I said, like having, it was just like, wow, okay, this was easy. Just hop on here and, and it was, she made it real easy. So I just want to, like I said, I want to give her a shout out for being a real person.
Because not many people are. Authentic human connection, man,
Yeah.
The ability to cut through. You can still do it digitally, email, text, phone, right? So
yeah,
it still works.
And the other thing too, I found very, very interesting as well. And I know this is obviously a huge part of, you and what you're doing and where you're at now with, in your life, personally, professionally, is leaving the corporate job. Now I know you've been out for probably about 6 years or so that you've left the corporate world, but I always find it fascinating having a conversation with somebody like you who really excelled and went very far in the corporate space and then left the corporate world to do something on your own. Because, it's like, I feel like you and I are kind of like come from different worlds, a little bit in that sense, and, but now you're, I'll say on this other side. And, I'd love to hear, what your experience was like going from the corporate world to then being in the, on your own, entrepreneur doing your own thing and what that experience has been like for you.
Here's, it's hard to sum this experience in short answers. I'm not really good at it. I'm pretty talkative on it, but I will just tell you, it's a ride, right? I mean, it's a strap yourself in kind of a ride to go from, to your point, one end of the spectrum to the other. It's kind of interesting because I did do entrepreneurial stuff for 4 or 5 years out of college because I was vehemently opposed to being a corporate guy. No offense to them, because I am one of them at this point, but that was not what I wanted to do. And so I did voiceover stuff and I sang in a band and I did basically anything I could to prolong getting, I guess, what, often we call a real job, right? And then I did it, and I did it for 13 years. And at one point in the middle of that time when I was at Amex, thought I would never leave because I got so sucked into kind of that world, climbing those ladders. And, there were parts of it I enjoyed and liked, of course, and now I'm on the other side again now. So I've almost spent literally half and half of my working years, now in my mid 40s, doing half entrepreneurial, half corporate. They're all hard.
Yes.
Like they're all hard in their own ways. So it's
just a different hard.
Yeah. But I was grossly overpaid is what I'll tell you. Like, if you get into the right corporate arena at an executive level, particularly in like revenue leadership and sales world like that. I now, when I think about what I got to do, doing the entrepreneurial stuff ever since I've left, massively overpaid, and I'm thankful for it that I had a couple years like that. But it's just night and day making your own buck, in the beginning, at least, right? Eventually you may catch some momentum, figure things out, but getting things started, there's a lot of safety and stability and security. You can see why a lot of people obviously gravitate towards that, and it can make sense for them based on their personality, their family dynamics, all that. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Like, like I said, like I, just from here, I have tons of friends that work in the corporate world. My wife works, has a corporate job. Just me, myself personally, I only worked in the corporate world like a very, very, very short time out of college. And then, my family, we used to own we had a family business. So after my short stint in the corporate world, I then was in the family business, and I did that for, 12, 13 or so years before I, made the jump, and I'm doing my own thing here. But it's different, there's, but again, like the whole corporate thing, like you said, like it's very easy to, I'll say, I don't want to say get sucked into, but get sucked into, you get this a really good paying job. And, you get, again, the corporate world, like as much as people, may hate it or deal with all the bullshit, there's also a lot of good benefits that come with it, right? I mean, there really are, but there's also the opposite too,
That's right.
Yeah. So what was it for you that really changed your mind? So you kind of went from, like you said before you had to grow up, right? So you dabble a little bit, right, in entrepreneurship. then you did the corporate thing, and now you're sort of back to the beginning of still wanting to try to grow up, right?
Yeah. And, on the grow up part, I mean, I think the reason that entrepreneurship didn't work for me in my 20s, the way that I think it's working for me better now is because I just didn't have the patience. I had the drive, I had the ambition. I even had a lot of good vision early on without much experience at that point yet. But patience is such an X factor in entrepreneurial pursuits. And that I didn't have. And that's what led me, quite frankly, to what corporate does provide, right? Which is at a much faster clip. You don't need to be nearly as patient to get all the rewards, recognition, stability, and security you might be desiring, right? And that was what was alluring about it. And I was, of course, getting FOMO because friends and stuff. So I jump in, I get into this path. And then I realized, well, look, it's just like anything. Wherever you focus your energy and time, and as long as you've picked something fairly well overlapped with your talents, you're going to do well. Probably you're going to figure it out. You're going to learn the ropes. And I did, and I was able to actually channel a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit into helpful things in my corporate path. Right? I think it helped me get into leadership. I think it helped me separate the style of leader that I was. All those kinds of things. So by all means, there's tons of people making a ton of money that could have been entrepreneurs that decide that that's the lane they're going to stay in. And certain company cultures really, really cultivate that and unleash that. And I would say for time periods in Amex, that was definitely the case for me. It was something where I was able to kind of let that go there. But then there were time periods where you realized you're a part of the big machine, right? This is a Titanic you're on.
Right. Yeah.
And, let's step in line, know your role, right? I mean, that was all stuff that as time was going on, and I think you start realizing that more, ironically, like you start getting bigger jobs and bigger responsibilities and bigger titles. And that's where you start feeling the squeeze on the entrepreneurial spirit, for me at least, right? Like the entrepreneurial spirit is a little bit more untethered in some of the lower level positions, especially if you're kind of in sales and you're out in the field and you don't work in the headquarters. You're kind of your own boss. Like when I was
you kind of have free reign.
I was my own boss. I was free reign, man. As long as you hit your numbers and you crush it,
no one bothers you.
Going to say anything. Yeah, it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
It was
So you really had the best of both worlds, then, really, for you.
I did, but of course, then I had this pursuits of leadership, and I'm climbing, and I want the promotions, and I want to have more responsibility because I'm a challenge guy at my core, and that's when I realized they're not wanting what I have. Like what I have in my core and my DNA, this doesn't seem to be like what they want you to typically act like and operate as. Yeah. And so I'm constantly in this dance of wanting to be myself because I really have no other way of knowing how to be myself. I moved 12 times. And the only thing I think moving really teaches you is you're going to have to just get comfortable with yourself, right? Because every new move, I'm dropping into an area. Everybody's different. Culturally, things massively shift from one section of the country to the next. Right. Yep. You've done it. If you've traveled at all, I mean, it's so different. So at some point, if you're moving all the time, you just realize, screw it. I'm just going to be myself.
Yeah. You have to. You have no choice.
Then to the point where that's all I wanted to do was be myself. But again, I could be myself in some ways. I'm not trying to say I couldn't be myself. I always was when I was Amex, but it definitely
had to toe the line. You got to toe the line. I get it. That's right. Yeah. 100%. Right. Always. And to be honest, like, that, I mean, it even goes, I'll even say just from my own experience, Adam, too. I mean, even myself working, in my family business, we're a family business. I'll say like a small family business, like, we weren't like a 1 or 2 man show, small business, but we weren't, a $100 million, couple $100 million or $1 billion corporation, right? But like even still in like the private world and any small business, you still kind of have to, I'll say, play the game. And there's still like the politics, not actual politics, but the politics of again, just being in business. And same thing, like I worked in outside sales, just like Seuss, right? So I had that same flexibility and the freedom and, but again, like even, I guess maybe a little bit more specifically for me in my experience, because, my last name was on the building. Right, that's how I always say it, because it literally was on the building, as the name of the company. But yeah, you still have to toe that line. Like even not just in the corporate environment, you still have to like you said, like you always just kind of have to sort of watch what you say. Not that you're gonna just go off the handle, but like again, you have to play the little politics that are involved with everything, because if you don't, well, then it can hurt you. It can hurt you in a number of different ways. And, I could go down a rabbit hole here with with all this, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, I could very much relate to exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And until you're the CEO, and even then you're answering to a board and everything, and, all the shareholders, essentially, it's just, I was getting more responsibility, but I was feeling more handcuffed. So that was like, how long do I want to do that? Right. Is it really worth it? And then of course, the stuff that initially was very exciting, which was making good money, being able to do things financially that I've always wanted to do or hoped to do, that wore off, right? There really is. I think there typically is a tipping point for most people on like, what's the number that you have to be at? What's the amount of material things that you're going for goal wise that you have to hit, where you're no longer going to get excessively more happy and fulfilled? And I was experiencing some of that kind of difference. And I'm thinking, okay, there's probably more. And then I pick up a book in the airport. That's where the journey all starts. Whenever I tell.
That's right. What was this forgotten book in the airport that changed your career?
At that time, it was a number 1 New York Times bestseller for 2 years. It was Positive Intelligence is the book, and written by an amazing guy out of the San Francisco area, Shirzad Chamine. And, randomly I picked this up. I never buy books in airports. I randomly pick it up one day. I read through it. It hits me in the gut as being so accurate for all the things I've struggled with my whole life. Essentially, it's these underlying behavioral patterns we all have when we're in stress and adversity that we've developed as coping mechanisms since our childhood that we now double and triple down on over decades. And they become subconscious autopilot kind of patterns. And they get us through things. So we keep buying into it, but they also have quite a bit of collateral damage, and they inhibit performance, and they impact relationships, and they keep you from being as happy and fulfilled as you probably hope to be. And I couldn't put this thing down. It was uncomfortably accurate, right? Is the way I always describe it. And I felt compelled to reach out to the author. I cold called this author, asked him for time. He was a lecturer at Stanford. He was running the largest executive coach company in the world back then called CTI. Gave me this meeting. We totally hit it off, spent 2 hours on a Zoom. He introduced me into these group experiences that he was running, which were these immersion sessions, 8-week deals for executives that I went through, boot camps, he called them. The boot camp was transformational, personally and professionally, really helped me understand how much I get in my own way and basically stay in my own head and have these, limiting kind of patterns that I revert to. And, 7 years of a friendship later, he convinced me to work with him, and I helped him launch a business. And
get the hell out of here.
That was kind of the journey. But it was a lot. I'm fast forwarding hardcore here. I mean,
wow.
The bobs and weaves, the constant exploration around this thing with him, the coaching that was required to get me over the hump. Nobody makes these decisions on their own, man. Like, there's a lot of external help to get you to think about departing something that you invest 13 years of sweat equity into. And then you're going to leave all of the actual equity on the table and say, screw it, I'm going to go start over. Like, nobody does that on their own. And so I had a lot of help, but that's kind of the fast track start of the journey. It was a very introspective process I went through that really helped me start to understand who I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I started focusing my success trajectory, right? Not on the typical things that I always thought meant success, which was external validation factors, money, certain types of title, authority, these kinds of things. And I started focusing my definition of success around how happy and fulfilled am I going to be? And how good are my relationships going to be? Because we all care most about people we care about, right? And so these things that we think about at the end of our life started getting into my near view because of all this work I'm doing. And when I went through that, that's when I started to realize this isn't the path for me. It's not a bad path, by the way.
Sure.
I've got so many friends that I still love and support in this lane that are properly suited for that lane, but it was not the path for me. And that was very evident at this point. That was not where I was going to find as much happiness and fulfillment. And so that, plus his coaching, plus the opportunity that proposed itself with that relationship, was what ultimately led to cutting the boats.
Yeah, it's funny. One thing you said earlier was how you had like FOMO of, I'll say, like your friends and colleagues like getting into the corporate world, right?
Yeah.
And I it's funny because the way I look at it nowadays, like we're pretty close in age, I think, but the way I look at it nowadays is, again, like same thing like back then, like you look at, like you said, like your friends, like after school, you look all your friends getting all these good jobs, big jobs. They got they're getting the new cars and the houses and the whatever and getting married, all this, right? And it's like, that's success, right? I'm doing air finger quotes, right? For anyone that's just listening and not watching on YouTube like they should. But like, the success that we'll say society in the world makes us think is success, right? That's right. But when now that I really think about it, it's like, I feel like nowadays, at least maybe me personally, I feel like there's a lot of people in the corporate world that have FOMO of people like you or myself or people doing the entrepreneurship thing. And I think there's a lot of people that have that now, especially now, I think because of technology. And I think a lot of it has to do with because technology has advanced so much in the last 15 to 20 years, with social media and I won't even, et cetera, right? But I think because of a lot of that, it has, I think, enabled a lot of people who may not have thought that they were entrepreneurial before this, but once some of this tech and stuff came along, it has enabled them to say like, oh, you know what? Maybe I could build this online business now that, you could do all this stuff online. Maybe I could leave my job and go do this thing and build a coaching program. It could be 100% virtual and you can freaking make like $500,000 a year just doing a virtual thing, right? Like it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, so why the hell wouldn't you do it? Or why wouldn't you try it, But again, I think it's funny. Like I think that shift, I think I've noticed it over the last like few years or more personally myself. I don't know about you, but I've felt and noticed that shift of, I'll say, the corporate world friends. And same thing, just as you said, I have tons of friends, family, everyone that are in the corporate world and they love it and it's great and it's for them and all good, Do I knock it? Yeah, right? But if it's for you, cool. All good, right? But at the same time, like you said, I feel like there's a lot of FOMO now, kind of on the opposite because it's like, oh shit, I don't need to work this $250,000, dollar job a year anymore. I could just go do it on my own and do my own thing, doing, the same or something similar. And like you said, just defining like what that success is. And I'm curious too, like what does success look like to you now? Like now that you've been on both sides, like how do you define success now?
It's again, these questions, I got to get better at answering them succinctly.
They're loaded questions. I got to hit you with the hard ones.
You got a loaded gun over there, bro.
I do.
But to your points there, I just want to mention that because I think you're spot on about the change in perception of work and change in perception of success being shifted. We watched for so many years, for most of all the last century, we watched generations just go up a different but same version of that success ladder, right? And that was getting better and better and better. It seemed like life seemed to be getting better for people, but then there was the tipping point kind of thing, I think, that happened where we all watched the downsides of our family members or things chasing these variations of success, right? And we've become more open to that now. Then you have technology, to your point. Now it's like all of a sudden there's a million reasons that you can, if you're so inclined and inspired, start a business with much less obstacles and constraints than just 15, 20 years ago. There's tons of ideas that are swirling around you all the day and people giving you examples of this. And then there's the post-COVID era and there's the AI disruption. And there's these things that are causing like deeper levels of introspection on who am I, where am I going and why, which has always been a thing because that's why there's always been midlife crisis stuff, right?
Right.
But I think there's more of that at younger ages. And it's a wider reflection spectrum people are thinking about with regards to that. So all those things I think are factoring in. So to answer your other question about what is my version of success now, I actually just had a conversation. I've become, through this journey, become really good friends with Cal Fussman, who is somebody that you would probably really like if you don't know him. He's, world-renowned interviewer for Esquire magazine, podcaster, and he's become a part of my group community crew and stuff. And I reached out to him cold on LinkedIn, right? And this
is your specialty, by the way. This is
my thing.
This is your,
you're in sales.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What else do you do, I guess?
This is true. This is true. So at least you learn something, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, I can't even tell you how much I use from these corporate years
Yeah.
to now successfully, or more successfully than I would have, be doing entrepreneurial stuff. I'm using all of this knowledge from being in these leadership years at Amex, the types of companies I sold to operate a startup, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get this friendship through a cold outreach to Cal. He's helping me write a book and the backstory of kind of this journey and our journey with Crew, which is really got a lot of really cool, interesting people a part of it. And he was asking me literally before this conversation today, like, do you feel like when do you think the moment's going to happen when we're going to kind of see the story coming into fruition? And I was kind of laughing with him. I said, it's already happened. And I think he was like, what do you mean? He's like, because there's so much to go still, right? Where I'm very early stage startup. And I said, well, no, that author that I reached out to 15 years ago, I just had him in as a speaker at this awesome event that we held for, 150 executives in Austin in our second year as a bootstrap community. And I said that morning after, and my mom was there, I'm doing this company with my dad, bootstrapped, as we're best friends. And the guy that hired me into Amex when I was a voiceover guy was there. And I just said, everything about that moment, the relationships, the full circle element of random synchronicity, having the capacity, if you let it and stay patient with it, to change your life, it happened. And that is my definition of success. I said, no, I don't know where this thing goes. It could fizzle and burn. We could become a massive success that hits newspapers one day, right? But like that feeling I had in that room of the journey that I'm on, just living to my fullest capability, finally challenged to the highest level I can ever feel like I've been challenged. I said, man, the story's rounded out for me. I said, it may not be for everyone else, but it has for me. Because this is success. It's an inside game. It's a journey. It's about relationships. It's about finding joy and meaning in whatever your grind ends up becoming. And I said, that's the message I want to get out to people, because I know how many people are struggling with that, whether they're a famous celebrity or they're they're trying to break a generational curse. People are struggling with where they draw the line on success and what should that mean to them when. And I'm trying to say, hey, man, it's every moment that you have the ability to breathe, that you have the ability to make choices, and you have the ability to impact people that you care about around you. If you just sink into that and reframe this success on a daily basis around these things, your story, right, can be told now. It doesn't have an end chapter that you're just going to chase or maybe never hit because life hits you upside the head and you never get there. Anyhow, I don't know if that's making sense, but I'm trying to make more
100%.
sense of this success thing being all about the journey and all about these little moments that maybe no one else even sees,
Yeah. Yeah. And when you said, like it's an inside game or an inward game, you got to look inward. I mean, I think that you really hit the nail on the head because, especially nowadays, like, which by the way, like, I say this all the time. I love technology. Like I'm just all about it. Anything tech related, I love it. But at the same time, I think it has also caused us to be so distracted. Besides my ADHD, that's a separate problem. But, with technology and social media and AI, just everything else, like it causes us to become, so distracted and so pulled back and pulled away from thinking inward, right? And you get busy in the corporate job or even in your own business, right? You get busy doing whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is, wherever you're at in life. You just, you're on this path, right? And you're moving up the ranks or you're building your business, whatever it is. And I think we're all guilty of it. I think we all forget sometimes at some points in our life, and sometimes more times than once or twice, right? We forget to sort of take that step back and really look inward and take the time to really think like, what am I doing? Is this really what I want to be doing? Because you just get so caught up, and because we're all busy, right? Right. That it just, everything just passes by so fast that we all forget sometimes, and we forget to just stop and just reflect and really understand like what is it that we really want to be doing, and like you said, at what point do you get to when like enough's enough? How much money do you need to make? How many cars do you need to have? How big of a house do you need to have? Like all that stuff. Like you go through, everybody, I feel like, to a degree goes through the motions of a lot of that, in their life. And again, some people may never experience like a situation, like you. And I feel like I've had a similar experience and story, some, kind of like yours in maybe not meeting cool, crazy authors like that, but still having just, having these like pivotal moments in your life where you really were able to just take a step back and look inward and like reshift and refocus and reset. Because you know what, man, sometimes people go through life without ever even doing that at all whatsoever. And I don't know, man, maybe at the end of some people's life, they're like, well, what was it all for? What was it all for?
There's so many regrets that people have, and I'm going to have them too. I'm not immune to them. I haven't figured out the math. I'm just trying to be.
You're trying to avoid them.
Just trying to scratch them off the list a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
So that there's less there. But yeah, I mean, if you're not careful, it's the heads down tunnel vision world we live in. People are heads down, tunnel vision. We're in a bubble in a silo. Technology's drilling that pattern in over and over. So yes, if you're not careful, a year blows into a decade, blows into there's your kids gone. I mean, it's the cats in the cradle song, like all around you, right? Like, life just accelerates in like a 3-minute version. And I think you need to figure out, at some point, you got to look inward, right? I don't care. To your point, there's a lot of people chasing the I'll be happy when, or I'll have enough when to their grave. And those people will vehemently defend that that's what keeps them more driven and motivated. I'm preaching something soft. And listen, I'm not any less driven or ambitious or determined as I was when I was in my opinion, lunatic, hyperachieving athlete growing up. That's what I was. I wasn't healthy. I was sick. People thought I was the most driven guy in the field. I was like, no, I was sick. Right? That's a sickness I've been trying to unwind for my whole life. I still have all of that in my core. I'm just smarter enough to know now that there ain't any amount of external accolade stuff that's going to amount to the soul enriching kind of success that I now am chasing.
How did you realize that though?
Well, it wasn't feeling good enough, right? Like the little tastes that I got, right, were just so fleeting and so brief and so insignificant. I mean, it just, and honestly, I think a lot, what, if I'm actually reflecting, my mom, all my life, I think was always in my ear about what's most important. Moms are good at that, right?
They are.
And,
they are.
This is what's most important. As I was like getting into that hyper chaser mode very early on in life, she was like, but these are the things that your relationships, she lives that way. Like that, she is, it's all about relationships. It's all about experiences with people. That's what everyone cares about. In fact, you want to make money, most people, right? So that you can have experiences. Who wants to sit in a garage by themselves and just stare at their own cars? No. What do people do? They bring in people. When I meet a wealthy guy, he says, let me show you my watches and my cars. Why? Because I at least need to have somebody else here to make this shit actually real for me, right?
Right.
Because if I'm sitting here by myself, I'm going to sit here wondering, what am I doing?
With
myself. It's kind of a funny thing, but it is. It's relationships and experiences. And so good subliminal wisdom was planted into my head. It got buried for a while. And of course, I think that's how most of us are at our core until we start believing all the versions that are around us and that people say we should do. And it's about just unwinding that. Again, getting your head up, to your point. Not being so heads down tunnel vision. That was what that deep work that the positive intelligence stuff does that I think better than anything is it helps you stop being so subconscious and automatic in your daily routine so that you can be more reflective and more self-aware about the things that might be running you down the wrong road.
Yeah, 100%. One of the, it's funny. One of the, I just saw it just, it was just a couple of days ago. I think you posted on it was on LinkedIn and, I mean, I have it up here, so I'm going to read it because it says, I resigned from American Express this week 6 years ago. What happened next was wild. First, freedom, then fear, then silence. And like, that's just, I mean, the post, it just caught my attention. I mean, it's very relatable. But because it's so true, and it's just by the way, the timing of this obviously couldn't have been any better. The fact that I mean,
it's my 6-year anniversary. You're right.
Yeah, it just passed within the last few days. So like the timing of that, and then this conversation all kind of happening right now. It's just it's funny, but just really interesting that and like I said, it just caught my attention. And like I said, the fact that you just posted that and what you just passed of the 6-year anniversary of you leaving Amex, and then I see this post and I'm like, oh wow. I'm about to have him on the show, and we are now talking about it.
And you're making me reflect on it a lot more than I probably even did when I was writing the post, because, it's funny when someone else is actually reading your own words back. I sat here and I had some chills, about the journey, and, anyone that takes these big chances and whether it's leaving a job, just big decisions. I mean, I think that's how it goes for most of us, right? I mean, it's just making the decision is normally a long, hard process. And then you finally make it. And then you realize, I'm just starting a long, hard process. That long, hard process doesn't end at all. It just totally re-begins in its own way. And then it twists and turns. And there's no way to predict those big decision endings. That's the reality. And that's why I think it's just so important. Again, what are you chasing, right? What are you valuing? What is that, why, the overplayed why that Simon Sinek made so popular? But
of course,
you must know that answer. You must know that answer, because you're going to get curveballs, and you are not going to be in as much control as you would like to think. And it's going to be all about surfing. It's going to be all about surfing. You do not fight winds and waves. You surf them. So I'm still surfing, man. I'm still figuring it out. That's for sure.
And I think, to your point there, I think that is one thing that I think, again, and I know we're really driving this point home, but I think it's so important because, again, we all forget. And sometimes even just, as you say, you're reflecting, I'm reflecting too. But, a lot of times we always think that there's that there needs to be an end, that there needs to be this end goal. And I don't think, again, there is no end. There is no end goal. There is nothing. There is no once I get to there, I'll be happy. Maybe we tell ourselves, of course, we all tell ourselves that to a degree, and we've all been, right? But when you really, really, really think about it, it just doesn't exist. There is no end. So, right. So you're always building, you're always taking a couple steps back, a few forward, whatever it is. But it's just, again, like you said, you're surfing, you're still, you're hitting the wave, you're crashing, you're falling down, you're getting back up, you hit the rock. It's just, it's just always building, you're always going. It's just, I know it sounds cliche, but it's a journey, right? And I think just so many people just don't look at it that way. They look at it as you have to hit all these milestones. And if you don't hit them by the certain timeline, then you're a failure. And it's no, that's not true. And it's we've all got this pounded into our brains, and it's just, it's tough, man, because I think there's a lot of people, again, I know too, there's a lot of people that, still struggle with a lot of this stuff. And, and sometimes you don't even know what to tell some people. Cause it's, you don't tell them hey, just do this, do that, try that, think about this, read this book, go watch this podcast, whatever. But, I think eventually some people just have to, it's kind of you have to have that realization within yourself to want to make the change yourself or whatever it is in your life, even if it's a personal thing. But again, I don't think there is no end, right? It's just, you're just constantly going, surfing, riding the bike, whatever analogy you want to make, right?
That's it. Until you can't surf anymore. I mean, it's just going to be new waves, new winds, and until you're done surfing, right? So I mean, enjoy it while you can. And I think the one advice I can give to people that I do think is practical, because to your point, this is a nuance, man, ain't no magic bullet for this, right? To help people figure this out at whatever phase they're in, right, in life, but is admire and look up to people that are going for a version of success that you really, really want. Really think about that. Don't just, because somebody's always in the news, because somebody has certain amounts of followers, because somebody has X amount of money, think that they have it all figured out. Really find the people. And that's what I look at now. When I see somebody, no matter where we're at in life, in personal life, whatever, really happy, really high energy, really being good to other people, I want to know what makes them tick, right? I don't care if it's my landscaper. I don't care if it's the guy on the garbage truck. I don't care if it's the person cleaning the hospital room. I'm curious about them because they have it figured out. They have what we all want. We all want, and we think we're going to get there through various forms, and that certain forms make it easier than other. We all want to be happy. We all want to have meaning that makes us feel energized every day to get up in the morning. And we all want to have positive impacts on human beings. Otherwise, social media wouldn't exist. So whoever's got that going on, and they're happening all around you, and they happen in some of the most mysterious places that maybe you can't imagine yourself ever being in a career or a job of, watch them, study them, and recognize that's success. And it comes in a million different forms. And that's the beauty of it. Anyone can have it at any phase of their life, in any career path. There is no magic bullet.
Yeah, and I would say too, I mean, to your point, how, you named a few different professions, some people might look down upon, right?
Yeah.
And I think,
or think they couldn't do it, maybe,
Right. Yeah. And I think to your point on that is the way I always look at it too is I think there's always something to learn from somebody, even if you think if you're looking at somebody who you may think you're higher up than them or whatever it is, or, in a totally different, let's just say a blue collar job, factory type worker versus, a corporate, whatever, executive, there's still things that both those people can learn from each other. And not enough people think like that. And, so I've just always been of the mindset, I think you used the word curious before, and I've just always been a curious person too. And, I'm always just looking for new ways to learn, be better. I'm also just naturally as you said, curious. Big part of the reason why I do why I started this podcast. I'm just a curious person, right? I just
which
genuinely
is a great why, great why, Bill.
yeah, right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's just, I'm genuinely just curious about people, and I just love to do it. I'm not kidding. I've learned, like I said, I mean, I've done a little over 250 episodes over the last 5 years with this show.
Yeah.
And Adam, I can't tell you how many things I've learned. I mean, it's transformed my life. My life, if you go back and, not that you're going to go back and either listen or watch every episode. I don't expect anybody to except my mom. Thank you. Shout out to my mom. Love you. Right. Because as you said, the moms are always right. And then, every week she'll give me some other good life advice. Sometimes that I don't want to hear. Sometimes I do want to hear, but hey, that's what moms do. Right. But yeah, man, like I said, looking back at I'll say the last 5 years of me doing this, my life is completely different now than what it was even a year or two ago, let alone 5 years ago. And like I said, I won't go through and name any names, but the people that I've had on this show, I mean, I never, ever, ever, ever would have thought that I would have had that type of person on or had that conversation. And again, you would think you would think that you can't, or you wouldn't want to have a conversation with some type of person, whatever their profession is. Again, when people always ask me oh, hey, who's your typical guest? What do you have on? I say, listen, I've had everybody from professional athletes to convicted murderers to CEOs of giant companies, and everything in between. It's so, it's and I'm not kidding. I'm not even exaggerating. And, again, there's wisdom that other people have based on the experiences that they've gone through, even if they were bad experiences or something that I'll say is morally wrong or whatever it is. But everybody has a wisdom or some part of wisdom that you don't have.
It's so true. Sorry, man. Yeah. First of all, that's my kind of podcast. Because I'm the same way. I love that.
Which makes sense. Which makes total sense as to why, by the way, why you were such a good fit for the show. And I think, and why, what's her name reached out to me. But yeah, I mean, that was it. I mean, I feel again, the thing is when in her email, she even used similar wording to the description, and my show and the content of my show. So again, I could see she actually did her homework. But yeah, this, it's the connection of this, it's so it's kind of surreal, It's
the power of synchronicity, man. That's become my new favorite vocabulary word, over the last 6 years, I would say, is just these things that seem random, and it's people that don't seem like they should be connecting, or worlds that don't seem like they should be colliding, but then in the end, after it happens, it feels like it was meant to be. That's my layman's version of trying to define the power of synchronicity that people totally underrate. And that I think it's one of the X factors to living through a day of digital overdose is putting yourself in the arenas where you can experience synchronicity, whether it's a podcast of all these random things. We have our executive community that we created. We said most groups, when they have communities, they always go narrow and niche. They've got a role charter group. They've got an industry group, a group for a city, right? For everyone that looks or sounds like us. And we said, no, let's make it all roles, all industries, all company types, other than it's a leadership thing and it's, a certain phase of life and career. We want people in the room. We want to pull each other out of our bubbles and silos. Because to your point, so much transferable knowledge happens. All the transformational shit that's happened to me in my life and in my career trajectory so far has been through relationships and experiences with people that were not in my immediate arena. And possibly, if you were to look on paper, not really people I should be spending much time with at all. And vice versa.
Yeah.
With me either. Why would they, right?
Yeah.
Those have become very mutually beneficial moments.
Yeah.
And man, you don't have enough of them. If you don't have 5 of them going in your life, right? 5 random kinds of relationship things.
You have to.
You need to figure out a way to make it happen because it changes your life.
It does. 100%. I'm not kidding. And I'll just give you like 1 or 2 quick examples. Like there's been a few guests that I've had on my show, like that I would tell a couple people like, oh, hey, I'm having this person coming on the show. Like, they're coming to record like in the next couple weeks or whatever it is. Right. And like, I've had people say, why are you having him on? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you guys are completely different. How the hell are you going to be able to have a conversation with that guy? And I was like, how could I not?
Right.
I was like, we're completely opposite. That's the point. Like, right. Like, and again, like same thing, like even again, like I'll even use, separate from that one, but another one, like, again, like, and this is on the extreme end, but just to prove my point, like the convicted murderer, right?
Yeah.
Spent most of his life in jail, was out on parole or whatever the hell it's called. I don't know. Right. So he was just out of jail for not that long. And he was spent, big part of his life, obviously in jail. And somebody said to me, like, are you afraid to have him on? I'm like, no. They're like, why not? Like, is somebody going to be at the studio with you when he comes? I'm like, no. They're like, do you think somebody should be there with you? I'm like, why? They're like, well, because he was a murderer. I'm like, so what? Like, I don't know. It just doesn't faze me. Like, I don't know why. But I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just built a little different. But again, I mean, I don't know. I just, to me, it doesn't matter, backgrounds, whatever you do, profession. Like I'm just a curious person. I like to just, have these deep conversations that are way more meaningful than I'll say your typical podcast. And, yeah, man, like I said, like it's this podcast has literally taken me around the world. And now here we are, right? Like, so like, again, like, this relationship with you and I, like this is going to, this is going to go on. Like, this isn't going to be our last conversation. Like, I already know that, and vice versa. Like, it's just the way it goes. It's just the way it goes. And I think so many people also too, nowadays, just speaking on podcasting, I'm really going on a lot of different tangents here, but I think people just underestimate the power of podcasting. They really, really, really do. I mean, I guess I'm obviously a little bit biased because it's what I do, but also, it really has changed my life, and it really has taken me around the world. Like literally, I mean, I took my show. I literally took this show to Africa a year ago. I was in Africa and filmed 4 episodes in Africa. Nice. So again, like it's, again, I think people just totally underestimate, the transformative power and the power that it has in business and just having these conversations. And by the way, it doesn't all have to be, I say this too. I just posted a video the other day. Like if anyone's doing a podcast, it doesn't have to just be an interview style podcast. It could just be, like a straight leadership show or a real estate show, just giving out, good actionable advice and tips and knowledge of just like a solo style show. Like there's tons and tons of value in that, just as much value as, people may get from this conversation. So, it's just, again, I think, these types of conversations, just conversations in general. And like you said, that going back to, I love the point that you made of put 5 people around you, have 5 conversations or get 5 people in your circle, even if it's just temporarily, that are let's say outside of your comfort zone or not the typical person that you would, be around or have a conversation with. Cause it's like, well, why would you talk to that person? Why would you? So, you know what I mean? It's like, screw that,
Yep.
You should do that. As exactly as you said, you should do that because that's going to give you the knowledge and some other wisdom and just other things that maybe you just didn't realize you needed to know.
That's I think it's how you change trajectory on a lot of things. It definitely expands your mind. It definitely makes you better at connecting with people, which is a life skill that will serve you in any profession that you're in. And yeah, I mean, I'm with you, man. I mean, I love podcasts now that I'm thinking about it, and doing more of them and stuff, purely because it's such an intentional old school version of it than we're doing it digitally in this moment.
Sure.
Of authentic human connection. And I think that's why people like watching it or listening to it, even though it's two random strangers or whatever, that
I think that's the best part.
Because
like we've literally, you and I have never even spoken.
It's so intentional and it's so deliberate, and there's mutual curiosity and people are locked in. And that's like this is becoming a space for that. And we're going to have to find these spaces now, because we're spending so much time.
You have to build them.
Down tunnel vision.
You have to build them. Which I mean, it sounds very similar to what you're doing at Crew. Which, by the way, I know we didn't really talk a whole lot about it, but I think this is probably a perfect segue into it. But it sounds like it's something similar to what you're doing. So what is Crew and what do you do?
Yeah, it's a senior executive networking community. So technically, it's kind of an invitation only mantra, because we're trying to bring in people and curate this thing where, if it's for VP and above leaders, like I mentioned, of a very diverse slate, so all roles, industries, company sizes and types, to come together for really authentic peer-to-peer kind of ecosystem and support. And so it's, facilitating networking, but really backing into networking the way we've always thought about it, through a very intentional, like real human connection kind of vibe. We want to, we talk as much about personal stuff as we do professional, so that we accelerate trust and bonding and friendships. We focus a ton on meaning and fulfillment instead of just titles and money and accolades, because again, you need white space and accountability partners around that kind of stuff. Right. And we just do a ton of stuff. We do virtual, we do in person, just creating these intentional outlets, kind of like we're just talking about, where leaders can be their full authentic selves in non-political settings, and really make sure that they're, eliminating regrets and defining success in a way that brings them more meaning and fulfillment now, not just someday down the road, and tapping into all their capabilities and experience to be, really positive contributors to everybody that they have the privilege of interacting with in their personal and professional life. It's a behind the scenes glue, I would say, right? And a lot of people call it kind of an unconditional support system, because most of the other commercial groups you hang out with or are involved with are very conditional feeling,
Totally.
So,
yeah. Is there anything else you're working on currently? I mean, either within the business or maybe just another, I don't know if it's maybe another entrepreneurial venture. Is there anything else? Like what's keeping you up at night? Is there anything that you're like, oh, I either got to do that or I'm working on that?
Well, I mean, this is a full throttle thing. We're in year 3. It's starting to catch and get legs, and, has all of its normal complexities. It's becoming a company versus just a little startup community, So my full energy goes into the vision of this thing, the experience, the operating of it. We bootstrapped it, and we're trying to maintain that, as the way that we do this, which is hard to do. It's hard to launch any startup, let alone bootstrapped. So I'm in it full. It's full 24/7. Like I said, the creative outlet that I'm dabbling in is now the book on the backstory here, which is something I've always been into writing. I've always been into, these kinds of things, and this is creating a platform that's going to allow, I think, a really cool message and story to come out with the help of, really powerful storyteller, Cal Fussman. So between that and trying to be a great, dad and try and enjoy my moments, because that's the one thing is, now that I'm doing my own thing, it's a lot harder to unplug than it was.
Sure.
When I was like slamming the laptop down, because I finally have got my PTO organized, and you kind of can disconnect more, I think, in that world than you can when you're your own thing, and there's always a to-do list that you could be doing. So trying to not overload my plate, but it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, so. it's the way it goes, right? But what's the science behind Crew?
The science. I mean, I don't know. We're really like a science-based thing, but we're more of
it's like it says like the research, like Stanford research.
Oh, well, that's basically, we run group coaching and stuff in there that's neuroscience and positive psychology based stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was because that's the journey that led to Crew for me, right? I went off and I helped launch the coaching business with Shirzad on the back of the positive intelligence stuff. And that was, his work is so highly validated. It's researched with, at this point, almost 1 million people across 52 countries that are a part of all that research that helps us understand human behavior better and all the things that sabotage success, happiness, and stuff like that, and then how we unleash that. So we focus on those kinds of things from a development perspective in Crew as well, outside of just the networking, stuff. There's a whole growth element that definitely is stuff that we focus on.
Yeah. So the sabotage success that you just mentioned, I think you might have kind of sort of mentioned that earlier too. I mean, did you struggle with that yourself, like earlier on?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. That's why the subject was so impactful for me, because I realized, again, no matter how successful you are, you might be the best in your family, you might be the best in your team or your company, you got a lot of upside to go, and I put this on anyone, all of our favorite athletes, celebrities. Look at their life in the most holistic, broad lens across. Yeah, they've got work and productivity, but then all their relationships, personally and professionally, how happy and fulfilled they really are below all the accolades that are shining on their wrists and in their, right, on their Instagrams and stuff. Ain't nobody here that doesn't have a leaky bucket and isn't doing things inadvertently that's getting in the way of why that's happening, right? Why there's such a leaky bucket. It's so hard to have all balance. Balance is the thing, man. Who do we know has amazing balance throughout their life and career? Because normally while one ball is flying graciously, another one's crashing to the ground. That's the way it goes, Yep. So, we definitely are focused a lot on that kind of stuff for, being more reflective about those things, supporting each other around those things. And yeah, I've been struggling with it my whole life, and it's a work in progress, but I find group stuff and peer stuff in safe settings, really authentic settings. That's the key,
Sure. Yeah.
To be extremely helpful. I find coaching to be extremely helpful. It's been transformational in my life. I find group and peer-to-peer stuff to be very indirectly therapeutic. All these kinds of things. You got to be more proactive about this stuff, right? Because as we keep saying in this conversation, life's going to blow by you, man. So put the oxygen mask on yourself first, daily, weekly, monthly, because no one else is going to do it for you. And there's a reason that's a law,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, this was great. If anyone, I know, you said it's invite only, but if anybody, is interested in learning more either about you or from you or somehow how they, can learn about potentially getting involved, like what do they need to do? Like how does it work?
Great point. Invite only, but everyone's that's in this kind of leadership criteria category is invited to explore. If you're into some of the things you've been hearing about, right, of a diversity network of different kinds of leaders, a personal and professional blended atmosphere, focusing a lot on meaning and fulfillment, if that stuff resonates, then you are invited to explore. I will make that a formal thing. And we just want to make sure people are coming in for the right reasons, right? Because that's what's creating such an amazing atmosphere. They can hit me up on LinkedIn. That's the only social platform that I really spend a lot of time on. And so, under my name, Adam McGraw, is easily accessible, or they can go to crewexec.com. Crewexec.com is our company website where you can inquire and get a little feel for the vibe as well.
Cool. Are there any self-driving Teslas ripping around the streets by you? Didn't they just launch them out there?
They did. I'm out in the hill country these days, so
you're further away from
further away. But I've heard
from the robots.
They're all zipping in, But I'm a big EV, automatic driving fan, so I'm all for
it. Are you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm as am I. So I mean, I don't know if you own a Tesla or not, but okay, yeah. Well, me too. I got my Tesla mug right here. Everyone's like, did this come with? Everyone's like, did that come with the car? And I'm like, son of a bitch, it didn't. I'm like, it's the only thing that pissed me off. Like, they couldn't even give me a free water bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
No, man, I love EV. I love these self-driving technologies that are coming out. I mean, I'm never going back to the old.
No, me neither.
When I drive another car now, I hate it. I hate it. I feel totally out of control. I feel totally unsafe.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah, it's
I'm
I
all in
can't.
favor.
Oh my God, I can't wait to show my wife. Yeah, my wife, if she doesn't watch any of this episode, she has to just watch like this last like minute here because it's so funny you say that. So I didn't get a Tesla. I got a Tesla just a little over a year or so ago, right?
Yeah.
So that was my first time ever in any electric car. I've never even driven. I don't even think I've ever even driven in one like as a passenger, let alone like driven one or own one. But yeah, so after driving one for a year, we were just on vacation about a month or so ago. We were in Florida and we had to rent a car and, could we have rented a Tesla? I'm not even sure, but I was just like, let's just get like something real big. We had 2 kids. Like, let's just get something, huge, like way bigger than we even needed to. And I'm glad we did to a degree. But I'm not kidding you, Adam. Like driving that car around, like it was some big SUV. I forget what it was. Like a big one of those Jeep Wagoneer. That's what it was. I mean, besides like it being great and spacious and all that, dude, I freaking hated it. Like not just because the Jeep sucks by any means, and it's not about that. I just can't stand driving a regular car anymore. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't. It's awkward. It's everything about it. I almost how many times, let me think of this. How many times I got out of the car, I think almost every day and forgot to turn it off.
Yeah.
Every day I got out. I'm not even kidding. I'd be in the parking lot like at Dunkin' Donuts. I would get out of the car and like I would close the door and it would still be running. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to turn the car off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm sure I know you could relate. You're laughing because like
so much.
Dude.
It just shows you. It's funny because for me, and this kind of spirals through our whole conversation already, the speed, it only took me about a month, I think, of driving in that car, especially using all the self-driving technology that it has now, to realize how quickly our brain gets conditioned to habit patterns. I mean, all these other years, decades of driving these other, and now it's like, it feels that foreign after just 1 month, and how quickly the brain goes on autopilot, to your point of now I'm on autopilot, right? Because my car's on autopilot. If I'm in any other arena, I'm in a completely different.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm discombobulated. Yeah, seriously. Like I can't even drive. Like you said, I can't even drive. Like not that I don't want to, like I get in another car and I'm like, I forget how to even, you forget how to even drive the car. I feel like, and there's just too many freaking buttons everywhere. Like, it's just like, it's too complicated. Like everyone's like, oh, Teslas are complicated. No, they're actually simple. Like people don't understand that. Like I don't know why people don't get that. Like no, it's actually 1,000 times more simple, and makes your life 1,000 times easier.
It does.
All the other buttons and everything else, I'm sorry, but that's just way too complicated. And I like just letting my foot off the gas and the car slowing down and stopping and not having to step on the brake. I mean, of course you do still have to step on the brake sometimes, but like, I don't know. I know we could talk I feel like for an hour. I don't want to bore anyone else that might be a Tesla hater, but
yeah. But I mean, I got no views on the whole leadership spectrum there. I mean, it's but I like EVs in general. I like Rivians, all of them. So
yeah. So, all right. Well, this is great, man. I'm really glad we connected. And like I said, I feel like you and I are gonna keep continuing this conversation, and look forward to seeing some more content I see of yours. Like I said, we've only been connected not long, just now, like on LinkedIn, and like I said, I've already caught some of your posts have already caught my attention and got me a reading. And a lot of times, like when I see some people's content, I just just keep scrolling, whatever. But like I said, some of yours it actually really caught my attention, and I actually read the whole thing, as opposed to most times I'll just keep scrolling, and but like I said, like it's again back to the both of our points of putting people that are, say, outside of our circles. I wouldn't really say you're that far out of my side, out of like my world in a sense, but geographically you are. Which is also like another one of the reasons why, when Shelby reached out, I was like, well, you know what? I haven't done an episode with somebody from some random ass part of the country in a long time. And I'm like, it was overdue. Yeah. It was overdue. And like I said, her email just kind of hit at the right time and with the right type of language and conversation. I'm like, well, and it was worth it. It was worth it. I'll say. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you feel that way, man. I feel the same way. I mean, you are, I am a Pittsburgh roots guy. That's where my families are from. And then, like I don't
have anything against Pittsburgh. So that's all right. Yeah.
Like I told you, one of my best friends is in this Grand area. So
well, if you're ever out this way, I
have a lot of positive vibes towards the whole state of Pennsylvania. So
sounds good. Well, all right. Well, so this is it for now. But the next conversation we have, whether it's virtually like this, if we do another one of these, or if I come out there to see you, that room better be a podcast studio. Yeah. Otherwise we're not friends anymore. Right?
Yeah, that would be cool, man. You've kind of inspired me.
All right, Adam McGraw on the Stacks. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Bill.
If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/On the Stacks podcast, or search the hashtag On the Stacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.